Hi there, welcome to a short video on understanding your assessment results. You're going to want to have your assessment in front of you and review it as we go through. I'm going to go through this very quickly. If you'd like more detail or more information, there's a longer video that goes into more detail right below this one. Okay, so let's get started. You want to go to your assessment. You either have a DISC assessment or the Talent Insights assessment, which is the DISC and the motivators, or you have the Trimetrics HD assessment, which is all three views. And let me just explain. The views are just giving different ways, different parts of who we are as individuals. The first view is measured in the DISC assessment is a behavioral style assessment. It's what people see, and when we use the car analogy, it's how you tend to drive. So how they describe you driving down the road. Do you drive really fast, or you're really cautious? And that, of course, goes into the work environment. How are you in meetings? How do people describe you? What's your interaction style? So that's the DISC assessment. Each assessment is measuring something very different. And so this second assessment, if you took the Talent Insights or the Trimetrics assessment, is the Workplace Motivators assessment. And it is something you can't see, where the DISC is very visual and it's descriptive. Workplace Motivators is something personal and internal to you. And the way I like to describe it is what fills your gas tank. What fills you up? What gives you energy? Your top two motivators, as outlined in the assessment, indicate, according to the assessment, what gives you the most energy, what motivates you. It's your natural interests, and it's what we call your driving forces. So Workplace Motivators is an assessment and a view. And then the third assessment is something you cannot see. Usually it is what we call under the hood. It's measuring acumen, personal skills, how you're thinking, how you're feeling. It's a snapshot. With the DISC and motivators, our goal is never to try to change those. They are what they are. What we want to do is become aware of what they are so that we can use them as our strengths and cover them when they become a blind spot if we ever overuse them. And with the Acumen, it's constantly changing. We can always tune up the engine, so to speak. So it's nice to see a snapshot as to how we're thinking and feeling, and that plays out into workplace competencies around personal skills and interaction. So those are the three views that are being measured, and in this video, most of this debrief is going to be around the DISC and the motivators. So let's get to that now. Let's look at the DISC assessment, and I want to just describe the four styles. That's why it's called DISC, if you see the four letters, D, I, S, and C, and you can see that there are descriptors for each style. We're usually a mix of styles, but the way you can understand DISC in and of itself is to understand the individual styles. So you can take a moment and look at that and see the differences between the four. There's also similarities between the four. There's some things that they have in common. The D and I side of the equation, extroverted, we talk to think, we're more willing to take risks. The I and the S equation, we're people-oriented first. We tend to focus on the people aspect of things first. The S and C, we're introverted. We think before we talk, so they're more cautious. They're thinking while the D's and I's are talking. And then the C and the D, they're going to go to and move towards or want to take action around tasks first. So there's some common traits between the styles. So if you get your assessment out and you go to page, it's usually 21 or 22 in the report, and look at this graph. This is the natural and adapted style. And let's look at the natural first. Typically, every time you take the assessment, your natural style will stay the same. You'll see that there is an energy line. I circled the 50 there. Anything above the energy line would indicate a style tendency for you, and some of the preferences that are described or the information that is described in the assessment relates to how high or low your scores were. The goal is not to raise your scores or lower your scores. It's just to understand how you scored, and then figure out, as I said earlier, leverage your strengths and manage your blind spots. So for me, and you look for you, what are your top two or three styles? What's above the energy line? What's most above? For me, it would be the I, because I adapt my D a lot. Second is the D, and then I don't have anything else above the energy line. What do you have? That's what you want to look at. Am I a high I and D, or am I high S and C, or what is above the energy line for you? Now let's take a quick look at the adapted style. This is how you're changing your style to meet current work demands. So if you took this assessment again in a year, chances are likely that your natural style will stay the same and your adapted style will change based on whatever's happening at work. And what you want to do is look at what's going up or down. And if anything that's going 10 points or more up or down, you want to go investigate and see what information it's giving you. And in my case, you can see how different the D style is. And if you want to pause this page, look at what's going up or down on your assessment, and then look at what the indicator might be. For me, moving down, being less assertive and challenge-oriented. So that is some insight for me about, am I using this strength? Is this a blind spot? Is this causing me stress? And then what you want to ask yourself is essentially, if you're adapting is not good and it's not bad, it just is, and you have to put context to it. Is it working? A lot of times it is. That's why we can adapt our style. It's working. It's something that needs to be happening right now. Or is it causing you stress? And is that awareness going to be helpful to you to figure out changes you might want to make in either how you're working or in the work you're doing? And number 3, is it a strength revealed? And in my case it was. I had no idea I was a high D and I wasn't using it consciously. So look at these things with the adapted style, and it's some additional information for you. The next, a couple pages over, is the disc wheel. And here what you'll see is it's just another graph of the D, I, S, and C, another way to look at how your style is combined. Your natural style is the circle, your adapted style is the star, and you'll see descriptors all around the wheel for if you're primarily, for example, a high D, the descriptor is a conductor, and if you're a high D and I, the descriptor is a persuader, and you can see that all around the wheel. The further out you are on the wheel, the stronger the tendency. So you can see I have a very strong tendency, so it's easy to read my style. Closer in you are to the wheel, that means that you weren't as high above the energy line, so it's harder to read your style. Sometimes it's easier for you to adapt if you're towards the center of the wheel. So if you're kind of at the spot, say 58, if you can see that, it'd be easier to move over to the other styles because your tendency is not so strong. So it's just another way to be aware of your strengths, your blind spots, and it's just self-awareness. Another thing to use the wheel for is to look at who's directly opposite of you. So across from the D is the S, across from the S is the D. Great opportunity for synergy because you approach things very differently in your style. How you like to drive, quote-unquote drive, using my analogy, is different. And you can, when you start to understand the power of each other's differences, really help each other. The S can help the D stop and not take so many risks and think things through. The D can help the S not pause and analyze so much and take quicker action. So you can be great support to each other once you aren't judging each other's differences. And that's a great thing about the DISC assessment. It just helps you understand differences and appreciate how those strengths add value on a team. So let's look at the motivators, the workplace motivators assessment. This is, again, is a different assessment, measures something different. So you'll see some differences in what it's saying, and it might even compete or conflict with some things that happen in the DISC assessment, but that is appropriate because it's measuring something totally different. It's not what people can see. It's what fills your gas tank, what gives you energy, what are you interested in. So what you want to do is you want to see your top 2 motivators, and if you look on approximately page 36, you get another graph, and there are 6 motivators. They're listed here. The initials are across the bottom. I'm going to go into what they are very quickly here in a minute, but look for your top 2 and make a note of what those are. So I've circled mine there so you can see them, and what I want you to do is look at what your top 2 are. And you'll see there's a bar here. This is the population mean. So you can see I'm way above the population mean in this particular motivator. So I had a very strong interest here. I'm above it here. I'm indifferent here. So I answered the questions very low. So this is a low interest for me. It isn't a top driver for me. And then the third one is just above, and it's situational. Do the same for yourself. Look at where you landed on your assessment. Now, I mentioned there are 6 motivators. They're listed here. Let's go through each one. The theoretical knowledge person, an example could be Albert Einstein, and it is a passion to learn. And what will stress us out if we are theoretical is our number 1 and 2 is if we can't learn and we can't discover new. Other people who tend to be category are professors, journalists, any profession, technology people, any profession where you need to study and learn and figure out new ways to do things. So high theoretical. The next is the high utilitarian, economic. This is what we call the business person. You see a lot of people that are investors. You've got the Richard Branson, who runs a large business. A lot of salespeople are high utilitarian. 82% of all top salespeople have utilitarian as their number one. So you've got high utilitarian there in sales, a lot of entrepreneurs. And the thing that's high utilitarian is wasted resources. Time, efficiency, that can be a stressor because they value all of that so much. The next motivator, high aesthetic, that is Walt Disney, and it's the balance and harmony seeker. You often see people who are in creative fields, or you can see any area where there needs to be balance and harmony in the environment. What is a stressor for someone who is high chaotic environment or a lack of so that's high aesthetic. Social altruistic is a love for service and helping others. You can see Mother Teresa there on the picture, a lot of people who are coaches, teachers, counselors, mentors. And the thing that will be stressful for the high social altruistic and on the bottom line. And when people aren't focusing on the needs of the people, the social altruistic person will be stressed out or will find themselves under stress. The next motivator, individualistic political. This is the power player. And you see professional speakers, politicians. So it is a drive, a motivation to, and a stressor will be an inability to advance. The sixth motivator is traditional regulatory. This is the process and order keeper. You can see here, this is the hall monitor. It's a love or an interest, a motivation for keeping things in order, making sure everybody follows the rules, follows the process. The thing that will stress out someone who's high traditional regulatory will be if there's a lack of direction, if there's no order, if people aren't following the rules or the structure, there can be high stress for someone who is high traditional regulatory. So this is another graph in your assessment about the motivators, and it is on page 33. And it's interesting because you see the 6 motivators listed on the left, and then you see the star is where you scored. So look at where you are in the star, and then look at where the population. The blue pill box there is the population as a whole. The mean is where the middle bar is, and the star is where you are. You can see for me, I scored passionate. So anything that you scored passionate is 2 standard deviations above the national mean. It's a very important driver or motivator, and it must be met. Anything that you scored indifferent is something that really is not on your top of mind, and when you scored indifferent, there's an opportunity for tension with other people who value that particular motivator. And there's another slide there that's kind of pointing out what the passionate, indifferent, means in regard to your score. And all of this is rated based upon how you answer the questions and how they compared in our huge database that is renormed and updated and validated annually. So another part of your assessment, if you took the Talent Insights assessment or the Trimetrics HD assessment, is on page 38. There is a section that combines now what did your DISC assessment say about your style, and what did your motivators assessment say about what fills your gas tank. And so these are powerful sections because it talks about strengths, it talks about areas of conflict, and it's very specific to your answers and your scores. And this is a great place to get, okay, what strengths do I want to leverage, what areas do I have conflict or what could be a development opportunity, how do I like to be managed, how do I like to be motivated, when I do debriefs, oftentimes we'll do debriefs around this section, and we'll have the person's manager there, and there's a discussion around that section. So that is, do not miss the value of that section in those pages. Here I've got a visual of the strengths, and I often suggest that people highlight their top 3 and share that with someone. The last assessment, if you took the Trimetrics HD, is the Acumen assessment. And again, that's under the hood. It's a snapshot of how you're thinking and feeling. And we will have, if you took that assessment, we'll be having a coaching call, and we can go over any questions you have on that assessment. It's very personal. It's not typically shared with other people, and it is a snapshot of personal skill strengths and development opportunities. And you can kind of see the list of the development indicator there, of where the strengths are at the top and where the development opportunities are at the bottom, and that's on page 58. So we very quickly, in about 15 minutes, have gone through the 2 or 3 views of the assessment, depending on what assessment you took, the DISC, the motivators, or the Trimetrics HD. And so what are your next steps? If your company did a benchmark, review that. You can create a development plan online. There's a section, steps below the videos that you can work through. There's some online university tutorials that you can use, and there's additional DISC, motivators, and Acumen tools and articles, all kinds of recommended reading, all there for your use. They're here on the web page. And that's it. All the best. And please contact me. There's my information there if you have questions or would like more information, or if we're going to be scheduling a coaching call. Thank you.